What is up, everyone? We are back with another episode of Doers Take Breaks. In case you don't make it to the end of this video, I want to let you know now that the Memento team has been kind enough to offer a $100 discount towards an IFW mystery box while supplies last. All you need to do is message me directly at any of the following here on the screen, and then I'm going to get you over to their business development team. And in the event that you are unhappy with your mystery box, this team makes the return process so easy because at the end of the day, they never want you to feel stuck with an item that you don't absolutely love. Now, in today's show, I have the pleasure to sit down with Victor Cruz, Business Development Manager at the Memento Exclusives team, which is the UFC's official global memorabilia partner. In today's video, we will be addressing the feedback that we as a community provided on the limited edition UFC 300 mystery box, and we will also discuss their latest mystery box, the IFW edition mystery box, IFW being short for International Fight Week. Victor, nice to see you again. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you, Alex, for having me on the show. So it was a pleasure meeting you at UFCX, and yeah, obviously being able to interact, and we've been communicating since then. So it's been great. Thanks for
It
having
was,
me.
yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. It was a fun event. Was it a successful 2-day expo for you guys?
Yeah, it always is. Anytime you get in front of the fans and obviously showcase your product, it's always a success.
I like it. So what I want to do is before we get in there, I want to give viewers a refresher of what this 300 mystery box product is. So real quickly, the box retailed for $1,000, was limited to 300 in quantity, and included authentic items from the Octagon, signature pieces, and other limited edition collectibles. Where I want to start with this is I want to hit on the pros first that we mentioned in that video, and then we'll hit on the cons. So pro number one that we hit on was secure internal packaging. And the way that I said it in the video was I honestly felt like, while I can't give an exact percentage, that like less than 1% of these should ever arrive with anything inside damaged, because it looks like you guys took no shortcuts on how things are packaged in there. Very snug, well protected. So that was great to see because people are paying a lot of money for these boxes. So I wanted to make sure that viewers at home didn't overlook the thought process that went into it. I felt like that is something that you are mindful of as a company. So that was one big pro that I wanted to call out. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, you're right. That's actually something that's a big component for us. We kind of talked a little bit about this offline, but when we'll discuss the process in greater detail. But one of the first steps in doing a mystery box is getting the product to our production team, and our production team does exactly that, figuring out how to package this thing, how the items are gonna fit in the box, so
Mhm.
that again, like you said, we minimize any kind of movement or anything that could damage the items. And that's also why I think the box itself, like, here's the thing, like, I'm a big proponent of like the box being a positive in itself. So that's why the
Yeah, yeah.
box is a heavy duty material, because we want to make sure that nothing will happen to the product.
I love it. And then, on that, the product itself, the box, I said that the unboxing experience was another pro. And at the time, I wasn't sure if this was intentional or not, but I said my experience in opening the 300 box was a great experience, because it's not like I started with a keychain right when I opened it, right? Like, I opened it and it
Right.
was the canvas frame. And then at the very bottom, I ended with, what was it from the 300 bucks that I ended with? I want to say it was the signed gloves was the last piece, right? But all in between were the smaller items that were in there, the acrylic, the yearbook, the keychain, and then there was a t-shirt in there, right? So there was all different items, but I felt like overall it was an experience to start with. And you and I spoke on this as well, that was also intentional, and the team puts thought into that as well. So do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, very much so. And I'll jump a little bit, but you weren't there. But after we met at UFCX, I took out a UFC International Fight Week mystery box to display. Because when you weren't there, I'm not sure if I had it, or maybe it was before. Okay, when we met, did we
Yeah.
have one on display?
No, but I did give
Okay.
your son that idea. I said, why don't you
No, no,
guys
no,
have one of
seriously,
these on
yeah. So
display?
we so we got one to display, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a fan, right? I try to work in industries that I'm a fan of. That's why I had a 20-year career in baseball, which you can see in the background here. But I'm a fan of the UFC. So for me, I opened one up, and the first thing that I saw was a Conor McGregor canvas, photo
Yeah.
piece, and I was excited. So yeah, the thought process goes into how we can make that initial like unveiling as exciting as possible. I know I have another mystery box here from IFW, and instead of the frame, the first thing you get is the you have it right behind you, the
The belt?
desktop belt. Right, that's another
Yeah, the
nice item.
replica.
You open it up,
Really,
you're like, oh,
that's a really cool way to do it.
yeah,
The
yeah.
one is
So
that one signed or is that one just a regular
no, mine is
replica?
just a regular. That one's
Okay.
just a regular replica, but still, it looks from a distance like, oh, okay, it's
It
just a
looks
desktop
so
belt. But
good.
when you feel it, it's a good quality desktop belt. So for
Yeah.
me, when I opened it, that was another exciting. So the point is, we want to make it exciting, and
Yeah.
there's also different like things that we can talk about. We will in this episode
Yeah.
as to how we pick those items and what kind of items there are.
Yeah, no, that replica belt is a really sick belt in there, and we'll jump into feedback from the International Fight Week edition that I had as well. The
Yeah.
third pro that I called out was I labeled it as other surprise winning tickets in there because going into the 300 box, my thought was based off what I read was the only winning ticket you should see in there were tickets to UFC 303. So when I opened
Mm.
mine up, right, it gave me content for days because it had a winning ticket right on top of that canvas frame
Yeah.
patch. And so I'm celebrating. And then I realized, like, oh, wait, it's not the 303 ticket. That's a bummer. But it was a subscription to like Fight Pass. Well, obviously, that's night and day from like a winning. Like, once I came down and I was able to appreciate it, I was like, it's cool that there's other winning type of tickets in here. So I wanted to call that out as well because the team didn't have to put extra, like perks in there. So I thought that was
Yeah.
another pro to call out. While it did become also a con that we'll hit on
Right. I
later,
was just
and
going to
I'll hit,
say
yeah,
it was a
yeah,
pro and a con because
yeah,
I think what was good about that feedback is differentiating. So for
yeah,
example, if the obviously the big prizes, pay-per-view tickets and the
hmm,
trip and stuff like that. So maybe putting that in an envelope that when you open it, it's a gold envelope or
yeah,
something,
yeah.
you could differentiate because if it's not, then you're like, oh, okay. So yeah.
Yeah, but so that was the last pro that we called out there. And so then now moving on to our feedback. It's funny that it's very similar in like securing the secure internal packaging. Now this is one layer literally above it, and you and I discussed this was insulating the exterior packaging. It felt like you were also surprised to learn that the way that these are shipped are literally just a cardboard box on top of those boxes so that when they get here, they're very likely going to have scuffing. They're very likely going to have corners dinged. And so I wanted to get your thoughts if you were already able to discuss this internally, if that's something that maybe going forward is something you see yourself putting like bumpers on each corner so that it gets shipped a little more safely.
Yeah, so that's definitely something we've considered. So here's the thing, and we'll get into this as we get into the deeper mentality of the mystery box. So a lot of it goes into trade-off, right? Because to make a perfect mystery box, it could drive the cost to a point where it doesn't become a good value. So we have to think about like, okay, what's the most important thing here? And yes, I'd love if we could ship these in like almost like a briefcase type thing that they won't get damaged. But for me, that's lower end on the totem pole
Hmm.
than it is to make sure the quality of the inside is the best. That being said, I got to tell you this story. So I did an event a few years ago for the Elf Cosmetics company. They
Hmm.
sent me like a box with goodies. I don't know what I did with the goodies. I can tell you that I still have the box because the box was unbelievable. So I
Okay.
am just like you and your followers, where I want that box to be perfect because it bothers me because it's a great box and the
It's a
quality
great
of the
box.
box
Yeah.
is thick. So
Yeah.
I want it to be in perfect condition because that's a display piece. As a matter of fact, I have one here on the floor that I'm trying to figure out where to put back here. So the box is a collector's item in and of
Definitely is.
itself. So to answer your question, the long-winded answer is that we're working on how to possibly do that without adding to the shipping costs, without adding to other costs as well, because I'd rather put the cost into the items.
Would and not to put you on the spot, maybe not even details that you would have, off the bat, but would adding like an extra half-inch layer to the sizing of the box, right, from all angles, really be an incremental cost in the macro that plays a big part in being able to do something like this or not? Because in my mind, you can even put like just four boxes on top of each other, right? And you might have a little bit more of a cushion there than just that one piece of cardboard.
Yeah, no, I actually think the idea that you just brought up, which is maybe increasing the size of the box so that we could put,
Corners,
bumpers
yeah,
on the
bumpers.
corners, that would be a great idea. Because I actually got something else, and I'm trying to. It was UFC related. I got something else in the normal course of business that they included bumpers, and I'm trying to remember what it was. But
Okay.
anyways, I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea. That's how we can minimize it because those bumpers are like foam, and
Correct.
so won't add much to it. So it's something we're considering because I think part of it is it's like a lot of stuff, Alex. Sometimes you don't know or you can't think of what you don't think of. So we don't think of unless someone brings it up like me,
Correct.
like, hey, I'm a collector. I want the box to be perfect. The
Correct.
production team is just figuring out how do we get everything and out to the customer in as best way as possible. They don't realize, hey, the box is an item
Yeah,
for
yeah.
us.
That's what I
So
even said in the video. I think the team overlooked it because I can tell you from the quality of the box itself, you guys didn't take shortcuts on the type of box you provided, right? Like even the
right.
magnet is very sturdy. I've had the 300 now for a few weeks, maybe months, and like the magnet hasn't gotten loose or like weak, right? So like you guys didn't take shortcuts on it. So I think it's just that extra step up a collector's mindset that hey, maybe somebody wants this also in like pristine like condition.
Right, right. No, so that's definitely good feedback and
Yeah.
stuff that the production team is already on to try to kind of fix and see where we can make it better for the buyer.
I like that. And there's this is a bit of a preview of something to come later, but even as we were speaking about these boxes, even having them numbered as well with like 1 of 300, 2 of 300 would be a nice feature to have. And that idea really just crossed my mind because recently another collector on IG sent me a picture of a recent mystery box that they picked up, and it was a UFC 200 mystery box. And I was like, oh man, I didn't even know these things were around back then. And he was telling me that they were limited to 200, and these actually came in a wood box with like a plate that said like 1 of 200, 2 of 200, so forth. But that's where I was like, that's really cool to see that there's that extra like differentiator as well. He happened to buy the bookend of it and has the 200 of 200, which is a
200 of
really cool
200.
box to
That's a
have.
good idea actually because I mean, that's a printing part that
Correct.
you're already printing on it. So
Correct.
incorporating something like that would be kind of cool because it gives you an idea of this is limited.
Correct.
So if I look down it, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
no problem, no problem. All right, so then moving on to our second feedback was the price to value, and I even mentioned in my notes like mini mystery box question mark, and it was just the idea of that 300 box. When at the end of that video, I said, would I recommend that somebody purchase, or I think the exact wording was, would I purchase this again as a normal day to day fan? And my response and feedback was no. And I said, because it feels like it's a bit too much of a gamble for the price and then the value that I received from the box. I said I'd rather spend $1,000, and my all in cost ended up being closer to like $1,500 because of the import fees, which we'll talk on as well, and the taxes. I said I'd rather put that towards a live event and go and enjoy the experience of that live event.
right.
I said, but as someone trying to push the space of the collectibles, UFC collectibles forward, I was like, I would absolutely do it again because I'd be curious to see how proactive the Memento and UFC team are for feedback and how much
Yeah.
improvement we can make from now till then. Not even then being aware that at the time, I think like you guys are barely a little over 2 years into the partnership with the UFC. So you guys are still, hitting the ground running, but there's still a lot that you guys are adopting and learning from and developing, right? So that was my feedback then. So and we talked about this live as well. So let me get your thoughts on when you hear like the price to value challenge there, and then your thoughts on mini mystery boxes.
Yeah, so I got to tell you that when it comes to value of a mystery box, that's always the biggest challenge is finding product. Because here's the thing, to let you, and we've talked about this, but let your fans in on a little bit of my background. So I've worked in sports for 25 years. I was in Major League Baseball for 20 years. I'm a big sports fan, always have been. I love wrestling, professional wrestling, and stuff like that. And so me and my sons used to enjoy, or used to do, mystery boxes in pro wrestling. And it always felt like, and some of them even use that angle. Because I remember TNA used to do this. They used to have their brown box special, which was their mystery box, but it was always the leftovers. You could tell
Mm,
it was always the leftovers. So for me, that loses its appeal. So
yeah.
in terms of doing a high quality mystery box, what goes into it is figuring out like what are products that, as a fan, from a fan's, because I only tackle this from a fan's perspective, right?
Yeah.
And I know sometimes it feels like, are they just business people who are trying to put things together? For me, I can tell you that I tackle it from what would I want to get. And the difficult part is figuring out which products we could put in. And I don't want to necessarily have the same products we had before.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I'm always trying to figure out what products can we have in here that are going to give value and make it worth the while for the fan to want to purchase this mystery box. And I got to be honest, Alex, the biggest challenge is that, because I am all for not like having the same feel. Because here's the thing: if you bought a mystery box and it felt the same way the first three times,
You're not
there
gonna
won't be a
buy the
fourth
next
time.
one.
Because you're
Yeah.
like, I'm going to get the same thing. Now, what I like about the UFC is that there's a variety of products, but the value products, the ones that are unique, are all going to be the same thing. Because think about it, it's not like baseball, right? Where there's baseballs, bats, hats, cleats, jerseys, pants, bases, all that kind of stuff. There's a limited like range of products that would be signed. So for example, gloves or jerseys or shorts, it's
Mm-hmm.
very limited in the range of products. So then what else can we add to that that would bring value? So for example, the belt we talked about, that's a great quality belt. We
Yeah.
talked about the canvas pieces and putting them in pictures or doing them in acrylic. The acrylic one is actually pretty cool because you could display that on your
Yeah.
desk. So what else? The Timex watch. They're actually doing Timex is doing a great job. Excuse me, of
No
doing
more
UFC uh, themed watches and
watches.
really good quality. So what else? So we have some other stuff down the road that I think are going
Yeah.
to be really cool. But that's the biggest obstacle, is figuring out how can I make each box unique and which products so that it doesn't feel the same way. And that's the biggest challenge. I will say, to be honest, so if you research a little bit about Memento, we started in F1. So F1's a little bit, not a little bit, a lot of bit different
Yeah.
of a sport than the UFC. We have more, more the common person fan in the UFC than F1. F1 seems more a little bit more elitist.
Yeah, I would say
So
so. Well, what
so a
type of
little bit of
items?
the
We don't have to dig too into it, but what type of
Mhm.
items are you guys selling there for F1? What type of
So
collectibles?
for
Just to
F1
give me
in
an
our
idea.
mystery boxes, you're looking at higher, kind of. So here's the thing: when you use race used, like re-engineered, repurposed items, you're talking about things that were in our F1 car that when then we repurpose them and create new products, but the price points are higher because it's
Yeah.
also a different demographic.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it is having someone like me that can come to the company and say, hey, yes, we use it. We're using the mystery box model that we did in F1, but it's
Yeah.
also a different demographic
It's a
here.
different
So
demo. Yeah.
we have to adjust it. And I know you had, I don't know if it was you or a fan of yours had this idea. And I will say, I give credit to the UFC. They're great to work with. They had this idea that we should maybe start thinking of doing different
Mm-hmm.
price points to these mystery boxes. Cause I got to tell you, I'm going to be 100% honest. Would I spend multiple times on our highest level mystery box? Probably not, right?
Right.
Maybe
It's not
once or
easy to
twice.
spend a
It's
thousand
not
plus
easy,
dollars every mystery box.
right?
Correct.
But we want to be able to offer it to everyone. Now, would I spend, let's say, $400 on one? I sure would, right? That's a little bit something I could swallow a little bit more.
Yeah.
So the idea of maybe different price points would be great. But I got to tell you, I'm working on that now. And the biggest challenge is making it worth the value. Because for
Correct.
me, the way I feel is a mystery box, the perceived value should be double what you pay for it. So if you paid
Mm-hmm.
$1,000, you should feel like you're getting $2,000 out of it, because then it
Yeah.
makes it worth it. I'm getting something at theoretically half off, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
So
I mean that's great angle to take. I think the viewers would be happy getting what they paid for worth. That at minimum, right? And then anything above it, amazing.
right, right. And part of it is also understanding where from a fan's perspective, like
Hmm.
I didn't get this sometimes when I was buying mystery boxes, but the value of the items. So everyone has an idea of what it could be,
Yeah,
right? But there's an actual value to an item. So for example, like a signed pair of gloves is worth at least $350 to $400.
yeah.
Not everyone might know that. They're like, depending on the name, I don't think that's worth that much. So that plays a part of it as well. And we'll go into, I don't know if you want to go into now, but how do we just like the philosophy of what goes into the mystery boxes? We could leave that towards the end, or if you want me to touch on it
Um,
now.
well, you know what? Let me give you number three. It almost feels like
Yeah.
number three and number four kind of play a role with number two, as far as like the feedback we were giving. So let me quickly mention these, and then you can go from there and
Yeah.
plug this in. So the price to value, the follow up to that was how do we go about giving it more value with either retaining the price at the same price point that you guys have, and it was only featuring top selling marketplace athletes within these mystery boxes. You and I discussed this as well. It felt like I mentioned this in the video. It felt like you were like that's not a bad idea, but I could also tell it wasn't as easy as just literally doing that. Like it felt like there was a lot more to it that went into it as well. So I wanna get your thoughts on that, and then quality versus quantity. Like we don't need 100 items in there and have 99 of them be these little tiny things that feel like they're just like the leftovers. We can settle for 5 items in there that are like just masterpiece, beautiful items that we want to have all 5 up, in display. So it was just like, in case the team felt like there has to be like a certain number of items in there, I think a collectible also and always pick quality over quantity. And so now let's get into some of the thoughts you had.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That, obviously you want to feel like you're getting top, top tier, top fighter items. The challenge with that is that there's only so much to go around, right? And so before I go deeper into that, what I will say is, as a fan, what I love about the UFC is it's not like boxing. So remember boxing? I don't know. I say back in the day because I haven't watched it in a while, but back in the
Okay.
day, boxing, if Mike Tyson didn't have a good fight, or if it was a 5 second fight, it ruined the show for you. You feel you didn't get your money's worth because
Hmm.
there was nothing else that you paid attention to besides that main event. What I love about the UFC is that no matter what happens in the main card, in the main event, the co-main event, you could have a great show. And that's how I became a fan of the UFC. I'm like, I'm watching the early prelims and we got some great fights.
Yeah.
So for me, like as a fan, I think about like I would love to get some items from fighters that are up and comers because like for example, you'll have a mystery box out there because I know that this was put in. You'll have a Sean O'Malley item from his tough season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, now we know who Sean O'Malley is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But imagine getting that before when he was on Tough. You're like, but no, see, for me, that's what I love. Give me that because that person might be someone down the road.
Yeah.
So that makes it exciting. So when we look at what's going to go into the mystery box, we look at different tiers, right? Because yes, there is some component. I got to include something from known fighters now. We'll jump into a little bit the UFC X real
Mhm.
quick. I know you're going to go into it, but let's talk about the International Fight Week
Yeah.
mystery box. You're guaranteed to get a Conor McGregor item, right? Whether it's a canvas and photo or a canvas and acrylic, that's the top tier athlete. You're also going to get, the UFC just started doing this, but allowing the fighters to have like
Oh, personal
individually
inscriptions.
personalized
Yeah.
like shorts. So you're guaranteed
Oh,
one of those from the 300 because you remember the
yeah,
one
yeah.
you looked at, I believe, was it Alex
It
Pereira?
was, yeah, it was Alex
The one
Pereira's
I got here
shorts.
has Max Holloway. That's a cool item and it's
Yeah,
relevant and it's from one of the because only the top tier athletes are getting that option
correct.
to do a specially designed
Pair
fight
of
kit.
shorts. Yeah, exactly.
Shorts are like Zhang Wei Li had her shorts and her bra,
Yeah,
which I think you got the bra.
that's what I got.
We'll
Yeah.
talk about that one. But my point is that we look at tiers, right?
Yeah.
As a mystery box, a mystery box, I want to include top tier items, and then there's a second tier, right? And then there's useful tier, right? Because the watch, right? Yes, it's a collector's
Hmm.
item, but you could wear it. I know I'd wear mine, and I actually have one from Timex that
Yeah.
I like to wear.
Yeah,
And
my
then we
piece was
have,
nice. I still haven't decided if I
right,
want to
right.
gift
If
it
you're
or
gonna
not.
wear it,
But yeah, you
right?
can keep going, but I'm going to show it here. It was a really nice piece.
Yeah, no, they're really nice. Yeah, you got the gold one, but there's another color one also mixed in there.
Hmm.
But nice piece, and it's functional, and it's something you can use as a UFC fan. But then there's also I would say the lighter tier for me is a throw-in, right? Because you mentioned, I think in the UFC 300, you got a keychain,
Yeah, yep.
and so again, the thought process is there's only so much product to go around. How can I mix it up in different tiers so that, because here's the thing. Okay, let's suppose we had a mystery box that had all collector's items, top tier athletes. The price range is going to get way out of reach. And then also, it's really just for display purposes. So we try to give you a mix in the mystery box to allow you to have items that you can display, items that you can use,
Hmm.
items that, like the canvas and acrylic, you can actually have it on your desk. And then also like the watches, the tops cards. So we try to give you a different mix of variety because we want to make sure that it touches on every point. And especially, maybe my fault, I'm also trying to go after similar fans to me. All that stuff appeals to me because I'm a UFC fan. So yeah, I'd love to have a keychain, a UFC related keychain on my keys. That's something that I use on a daily basis and is functional. I'd love to. I wear my UFC watch all the time, but I also would love to have items from unknown fighters or not as well known fighters because that's the appeal of the UFC. Those guys are going to be tomorrow's superstars. And I think that's where sometimes maybe that gets lost a little bit because we look at it in the moment. So not sure which are the you know like the fight worn stuff you received and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know some of those names from your UFC
So
300 box.
yeah, so that was the issue because I was gonna say the International Fight Week definitely delivered way more than the 300 did. So I definitely want to get there. But that 300 one, it felt like a big miss on my box and the boxes that I was able to find online through like people sharing their reviews. They had similar feelings about it. Now we also know this, right? That somebody that has a bad experience is way more likely to take the time to post their bad review than somebody that absolutely loved their box. They're just loving their box and we might never hear about them. So I want to be fair to
Right.
say, like, just because I only found 10 out of 10 that were negative, that means it was a complete bust of a product. So I understand that. But my box, to answer your question, had the it was a Tafa shirt, which had no signature. So it was literally just a Tafa XL shirt that wasn't worn either. It was just literally his size shirt that had Tafa in the back with no signature or anything. So that one felt like a miss because I was like, at least if it was fighter worn or signed, then maybe I can display it. But this would just, like just be a T-shirt. So that one's still in the bag. I haven't really done anything with it. Then the other item was the Elvis Brenner fighter worn gloves. Those I don't mind. He's a fighter that I'm aware of. He's up and coming, so he can still have a career that ends up being like gloves that I'm very happy to have. Unfortunately, he lost the fight of that fighter worn gloves that I received. So like, okay, that's fine. And then what was the other piece? Other than that, I think those were the two big pieces as far as it like pertains to anything outside of the canvas patches that you guys pack in there. What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
those? Were you
Yeah.
surprised to hear
So
that I got a T-shirt that didn't have an auto or a signature or anything on it?
yes and no. So I would say yes, I'm surprised because, and this is something I'll discuss with my team. So we have a collection of fight worn items, and we actually get fight worn items from different events,
Hmm.
and I try to hold those back so we can put them in the mystery boxes. It's a nice mix.
Hmm.
The reason I say I'm not surprised is because I am the one who goes and collects them, and I go through each one. That's why I know there's a Sean O'Malley tough. Yeah, I think it's his shorts, and I know there's a Rose Namajunas something from earlier in her
Yeah.
career because I collect those. So now when I go through them, the way it works with Fight Worn is the fighters, once, so they get issued obviously their gear. The items that are worn in the ring, in the octagon, are going to be their shorts and their gloves for the most
Hmm.
part. They wear
Hmm.
their jerseys to the octagon. Sorry, for some reason I'm still got the
The
wrestling
wrestling,
mentality. Ring,
yeah, no, no, yeah.
yeah. So the octagon, and so sometimes, so what'll happen is after the fight, they will sign one item. That's how we
Hmm.
get our mix of fight worn. Now, in some regards, they'll provide their fight issued jersey, and for whatever reason, a signature is missed. It's provided without a signature, what have you. Sometimes even the athlete has to go to the hospital, so
Correct,
they
correct.
can't sign it because So we'll get the
Okay.
item. So that's why I think that shirt, that jersey, is fight issued. It's just it didn't have the signature for
Hmm.
whatever reason. I don't know what happened, but the constructive criticism to my team will be, let's make sure if it doesn't have a signature, maybe hold that one back or add it as a throw-in.
Throwing, yeah.
Like for example, I think it was your IFW one. You got two gloves,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So my point is, if you would have gotten that one in addition to another one that was signed, you'd be like,
Correct.
oh, okay. It wouldn't be the same reaction. So it's
Absolutely.
really right. So it's
Which
just
is why I
maybe
even said that about the keychain. If my overall experience would have been better with the 300, I would have been like, hell yeah, an extra keychain, right?
right.
But because
The IFW one, if you got a keychain, you'd have been like, oh, cool, because that one's a better
absolutely
experience. Right, right.
100%.
Yeah. So for me, a lot of this feedback is great because I don't know what I don't know. So
Hmm.
I didn't know. So now I'll go to my team and let them know, like, hey, if we're going through the fight worn items,
Yeah,
please let's make sure if it doesn't have a signature, we're not throwing it in there. Or if we are throwing it in there, it's an added piece as opposed to the only fight worn item.
yeah,
Um, because what you'll have is, so going back to what I was mentioning about the different tiers.
yeah.
So in that second tier for fight worn items is where what we're putting in there. That shouldn't be your main item. So if you ever feel like that's the main item, there was a fail on that box, to be
Okay.
honest, because it shouldn't be. It should be the second tier. Like, okay, your reaction should be like, cool, I got something that was worn by a fighter. Wasn't necessarily a Conor McGregor or a John Jones,
Yeah.
but this is that second tier Victor was talking about. And now I'll follow this fighter, or I'll, hopefully this fighter will be someone that'll,
Somebody.
go on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so just so you know, that's kind of what the process is,
Yeah.
and it's good. It's good input that I'll provide my team, because we shouldn't be
Now,
including stuff without
before we
signatures.
before we dig more into what a different price tier box may look like, I wanna stick on the thought process of featuring top selling marketplace athletes and like the challenges around that.
Hmm.
So if the nature of a mystery box is truly, and it's okay if the answer is yes, if it's like and maybe you're the right person to ask this, if the nature of these boxes um should be looked at similar to the way people that purchase trading cards look at it, which is, you're somewhat gambling, right? Because you know that you want to hit the one of one Sean O'Malley rookie card of that year, but you're gambling, and chances are it's going to take a lot of luck to hit that. And you might hit some other good cards, but that's kind of how you should go into like making this purchase. The 300 felt like it was that. The International Fight Week felt a little different because, to your point, you guys built that mystery box around what you guys thought was going to be a Conor McGregor fight weekend, that turned out not to go through, but you guys already had it in development, so you guys went through with it, but you guys guaranteed a really big piece in there, that being like a Conor for sure issued item in there. If the nature of the product is that, like, or I should reiterate, would you say the nature of these mystery boxes is intended to be somewhat like trading cards, where it is kind of a gamble, or is it not fair to say that, and what you're trying to develop is a product that 10 out of 10 people are going to be satisfied with, because even at the lowest ranked person of satisfaction, they'll at least get their value of what they paid for?
Yeah, I think it's a cross of both. And here's the thing: I lean towards more that I hope that these mystery boxes will be, 9 out of 10 people will be happy and getting their value. But
Mm-hmm.
that's a good analogy. Trading cards, when you get a trading cards, if you're a fan, right? Here's
Mm-hmm.
the thing: we have different levels of fans. And
Correct.
I will tell you that from my experience. We have fans that are a little bit more casual, and fans that are like me, where I'm like, when I did trading cards, baseball, I mean, that's what they're known for, right?
Yeah.
And you open that card, that
Facts.
pack, and you're like, man, I got a Greg Maddux. If you know who Greg Maddux is, big time pitcher, Hall of Famer. And then the rest of them, it's kind of in tiers. It's the
Yeah.
same way, right? You get tiers. You get a nice item. You might not get the one you're looking for, which is like, oh my god, but you'll get one. Okay, cool. That was cool. Oh, that one's cool to have. All right, I don't know who these guys are, but we'll follow them. So you're kind of getting that same tiered approach to the packs, and I think that's what trading card companies do.
Correct.
But it isn't gamble because there'll be one item that, for example, the pay-per-view tickets that you're
Yeah.
like, I want them. I want fans for the mystery box to feel like their gamble is for that big prize,
Not for
right?
everything else.
Not for everything else. Everything else is like you said, like the trading cards, where it's like, okay, cool. I still got a Conor McGregor item. I still got a Michael Chandler item. I still got a nice belt that I can display, which is
Hmm.
great quality. I still got, a nice frame picture. I still got, like I did, Max Holloway's UFC 300 shorts.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I got a nice watch. So I want it to be a combination of both. But the gamble should never be, and what am I going to get in the actual box? The gamble should be, I'm going to buy the box. So I'm going to get some cool stuff, and hopefully I can get those tickets.
303.
And
Yeah.
also, there might be other prizes in there, right? So, and part of the plan going forward is that it's not just going to be the gamble's not just going to be the pay per view tickets. There might be
Yeah.
some other items that you're like, oh, there might be something else in there. So the percentage of how, because the ratio,
Yeah.
of how many winning boxes there are might be now lower, or I should say higher. There'll be more winners, and
Hmm.
so that's what I want the gamble to be, not necessarily the individual box and the common items that you will receive in there.
So your answer is great because then I want to shout out MMA Cardboard who came out with this idea to me during the International Fight Week comment section. He mentioned that one thing that would go a long way would be just like trading cards have a checklist, so you know what you're chasing, right? It would be amazing to have a checklist for mystery boxes because then you can say like, all right, I'm buying this product. I know that the big chase is the event tickets, but I also know that there's Connor pieces that I want to hit, and there's only 10 of those out there. There's Sean O'Malley, and there's only 5 of them out there. And so now you can decide based off of the checklist if you feel the odds are in your favor to
Yeah.
make that purchase or not. And the other thing I'll mention before I let you give your thoughts on that is I felt like the International Fight Week more common or more casual fans were open to buy it once you guys opened the box because they didn't feel like it was a gamble. If they never purchased one of these products, they're like, what the hell is a mystery box? But now if they're able to see and get an idea, a glimpse of what's in there, and you're guaranteeing a Connor piece is in there, that was somewhat of a checklist to them. They're like, well, at minimum there's going to be a Connor piece, so I'm willing to
Yeah.
make that leap and make the purchase. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I got to tell you, I don't do this in a comical way, but it's kind of a little. It kind of makes the point. So the key here, it's called a mystery box, right? So I love the idea of having a
That's
checklist.
fair.
The
That's fair.
problem is that then it wouldn't be much of a mystery. Plus,
Mm,
and when I
fair.
talked about the different tiers, I like the fact that you can get any fighter. And so, really, the checklist should be the UFC roster. So that for me is kind of it. Would, on one hand, it would defeat the purpose of a mystery box if you
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
have an idea of what you can get, and then the other side is, well, you could get anyone. Honestly, like I try
Mm,
to make sure that we give a wide range because you never know what you're going to get from the UFC in terms of fight worn, and you never know what you might have available. And to be honest, we didn't know we had like sometimes we have to look at what kind of canvas we have, and it's like, oh man, we still have a bunch of like Conor McGregor canvas. Let's
yeah.
make some products off of that. So for us, I like the fact that it's a mystery. I think it's more. I think what would help the process is kind of like me and you talked about this a little bit. When you go on our website and you go to mystery box,
Hmm.
kind of tongue in cheek, we try to give you an idea of what's going to be in the box, right?
Yeah.
We try to give you an idea with clues. And I think was it you who brought it up? You said you thought it was maybe a placeholder
That's right.
with
That's what I
Connor
said.
stuff.
Yeah,
But
somebody
and then
even
I told you,
commented to me. They said, "Oh, this next box has a Connor piece," and I said, "Be careful because that might be a placeholder. Let me confirm with the team when I go to UFC X this weekend." And when you guys told me that, I went back and let him know. But yeah, I just assumed you guys put what was clearly a shadow of like Connor fighting as the placeholder of that canvas patch
no,
just for
yeah,
good
yes.
marketing. But you meant to
Just so
know.
you
Yeah.
Just so you know, we don't release anything on our site until it's ready to go. So we would never put in there. Maybe the name on canvas will sometimes have a placeholder image. It'll say image to to follow or whatever. But when it comes to the mystery box, whatever we put on there, it's not going to be changed later like that's a placeholder, because that's kind of bait and switch. I wouldn't want people to think like, oh,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
says
yeah.
Connor, and then it's like, oh wait, there was nothing Connor related. So my point to that is I'm giving you inside information that we try to do it in a tongue-in-cheek way so that people could get an idea of what could be in the box, and I try to make sure that that's as accurate as possible. So I'm glad they brought that up. But
Yeah.
for me, it's really the experience here is you're a UFC fan, right? And it is a mystery what I'm going to get, but I am confident that I'm going to get my value and then some. Because I know what you said, like people would be happy if they get their value, what they
Mhm.
paid for it. For me, I want to exceed that. I want to
Yeah.
at least get you. I won't always be able to accomplish double the value, but let's say you
Right.
paid $1,000 and you got $1,500 worth
Yeah.
of value. That's a good trade off. So that's what my goal is. But the more I make you aware of what's coming, then what's the point? Just go on our website and buy the
That's
product
fair.
as
That's
opposed to a
fair.
mystery box.
I like how you teed that up. So I'm gonna give you one as well. Let me ask because it's. Let me ask how much time between when the product is finalized. So let's talk like actual product, mystery box, 300 bucks, from when it's finalized to when it's sold and shipped. How much time would you say is in between that window?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So let's put it this way: when we were done with IFW, I started working on the next one, which is I would say around November,
November. And
because it takes
okay.
time. Because here's the thing: part of the process is curating, right? Because I want to make sure that every box
Mm-hmm.
feels different. So, easy thing for me to do is let's do what we did for IFW, but then that would be an IFW part two. So for me, I take a few weeks to try to think through products. Also, one of the things that we try to do is we try to partner with other UFC partners. So, for example, Timex is a UFC partner,
Mm-hmm.
right? We try to we try to partner with other partners and incorporate their products. So it's also having conversations with them. What do they have available? What
Mm-hmm.
could be put into the mystery box? Another thing we try to do also is what's an item that could be exclusive to the UFC mystery box? Because also I'd like to get a mystery box with items that I can't go on and purchase online. Now, not that that's a negative if you can, because obviously, if if I'm giving you a watch and you see, oh man, that's a $250 watch. Excuse me, hold on one second.
Yeah, go for it.
It's a $250 watch. That's awesome. But it also would be nice, like, oh man, like this is a watch that's not available on the website. It's exclusive. Now it enhances the experience. And I'm just using time as an
Yeah.
example. But some partners have production times that are months. Like, hey, to get something exclusive, it'll be for next year. I have other partners that are like, yeah, we could do that.
Right
So
away.
that's something we're actually working on for these next ones that are going to have UFC collectibles mystery box exclusives
Mm-hmm.
that I think will enhance the value. Yes, the items retailed for this, but there's an added value for the fact that you can't get it anywhere else.
Correct.
So we
Correct.
tried. So to answer your point, so a lot of it is having conversations, planning on what could be in those boxes, and then talking about timeframes. Because what we like to do is I like to get the product into our headquarters for our production team a month in advance of when it's going to be released. So let's use the next one as an example,
Mm-hmm.
November. Hypothetically, without knowing if November 1st is a weekday or not, let's use that as an example. November
Yeah.
1st. So I want to get all the product into our headquarters by October 1st. So
Yeah.
my team has a month, because what they do is we don't have the boxes on our shelves, right? Because we have to see what the product's going to be,
What's gonna fit?
what the
Yeah.
size needs, right? What the size needs to be, and then we order the boxes. So having all that time will help us plan that out.
Okay.
So that's October 1st. We're going to be August 1st, right? So for
Yeah.
me, I've got to start finalizing with our partners what are the items and then how long do they need to ship. Some partners, hey, I can get it to you in a week. Other partners, it's going to be a month. So that, okay, that means I have September 1st. I got to place that order. So those are the things that go into the planning phase, and it's a
Yeah.
2 to 3, maybe sometimes 4 month process, depending on the box.
That's a lot
Which
of
is why,
really good insight. Yeah. I want to say, because, and I was curious because I figured this might be like where the bad luck came in. You know how you mentioned the checklist should be the UFC roster? Well, the fighter worn gloves that I hit were of a fighter who's no longer on the roster.
well,
Correct.
when I said that, the portion that I was thinking that I moved on from was, and you could also get fighters who are no longer with the UFC because it's just a backlog sometimes of
Yeah.
fight worn that gets mixed from all different, like,
So
you
could that
know,
be some feedback, that from, our side, that if we're going to, if we're okay, right, knowing that we have to be okay with it being anybody on the roster, that's just part of the game, then can at least the improvement on it be, one, let's guarantee that they're still an active fighter, um, or two, because this is, I'm 2 for 2 now on this, right? Is guarantee that they're at least fighter worn gloves from a winning bout. Because not
hmm.
only is it kind of like, man, I got somebody that's not ranked, but they also lost this fight. So these gloves really aren't,
Well, let me
necessarily
ask you this.
holding
Let
their
me ask you
value.
this
Yeah.
from a fan's perspective, and not just that's a very good feedback. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
Yeah. Please, please. This
dissuading
is
you,
open
but I
forum.
always
Let's
have
challenge
examples.
me.
Okay, you're a fan. You were
Yeah.
at 303,
Yeah.
right? I was at 303. Ian Gary versus or Ian Machado Gary
Yeah.
versus Michael Venom Page. If you got a Michael Venom Page signed fight worn glove, would you feel the same way? I mean, he's still a very popular fighter. Yes, he did lose, but that one was a fight that could have went either way, according, you know what I mean? Like according
I
to
would be curious what viewers say towards my answer here, but I would say I would feel the same way. I would.
yeah, because I
Yeah,
don't know if I
because
would. I
I
would
want
still see
I
it.
want I want winning gloves. I feel like there's a discounted value to anything that's fighter worn from a bout that you lost, even if it was a close bout, right? But if I'm being honest, my honest answer would be no. I would prefer to get fighter worn gloves from a winning bout. And I
I think
want to see where people vote on this. Like to your
Yeah, no,
example,
I'd be
that
curious. I'd be curious because it goes back to what I was saying. We have different types of fans. For
fans,
me,
yeah.
I'm the kind of fan the opposite. Like I wouldn't. It depends. It depends. You're right because it depends. If it's someone less popular or less well known and they lost, like all right, for me that would be a throw in the
Hmm.
box, right? As a fan. But if it was like, let's say Rose Namajunas loses a fight
Yeah.
and I got her gloves, I would still get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I did a signing with her for UFC
303 when you were
International
there,
Fight
right?
Week,
Yeah.
and I one of my the gloves that are displayed there are from her because
Very cool.
I'm a big fan of Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So again, we're different fans. Where for
Yeah.
you, like winning is has a certain value to it. Where for
Yeah.
me, I'd be cool. It depends on the athlete, obviously. It depends on the athlete. So I
Yeah. Yeah.
agree. That's a very good feedback. Um,
Do you think
yeah,
that's something your team could do something with, or do you think it's a challenge? Like, and again, if it's not anything that you can really answer here, that's fine too. But I just want folks to feel like I asked the right questions, and I felt like
yeah.
was one of the right questions to ask. Is that something that you think is fair, um, constructive, feedback that your team
Yeah,
could do something with, or do you think it would still be a challenge because of just the way operations are and status
a
quo
little,
of process?
a little bit of both. I'll use it. I mean, I'll go back to what I was saying about the jersey you got that wasn't signed. Could we pay a little bit closer attention to what we're putting? When we're pulling from the fight worn stuff. Sure. Now, the flip side of that is goes back to what you were saying production wise. Sometimes the fight worn is limited, and so, um, you know, would I rather not include a fight worn than to include a fight worn from a fighter that lost?
Correct.
Um, I'd rather throw it in. But in that regard, it would be a throw in. So for me, I would want to spend a little more time like, okay, what is it that I'm throwing in here? And if it's a throw in, what else can I throw in here to make it? So, for example, you got two gloves, right?
Yeah.
If you got one, and I can't remember the two that you got on the
Yeah, so
IFW one.
the first one was the fighter that I can't remember her name now, but she's no longer with the UFC. Also happens to have a bad rep outside of the UFC. So, like, all right. And she
But what was
lost
the
the
other
fight.
one?
And she lost the fight. Now, you're not going to like the answer to the second one because it's just comical at this point. So the next one, happy at the moment. It was Mokayev gloves. One of them signed,
Oh,
right? Not fighter worn.
right.
You know the story with him now. He
But the
just
point is, when you got the box, you were happy with it. So my point, the point is, that's a great example because when you unveiled it, the second pair of gloves turned out to be a throw-in, but you weren't disappointed with it. And so, to your point, in that type of box, it worked out great. And
correct.
so, to what you're saying is paying a little bit closer attention. If I'm going to put in gloves that are fight worn, but they were losing, as long as it feels like it's a throw-in,
A throw in,
that's
correct,
okay.
correct,
Right.
yeah, and that's what people did
Yeah.
feel in the comment section about it. They're like, the Mukayev gloves are definitely the winning ones. Like,
They
you
might
take the
feel
other
different
ones at
now.
this point. Yeah, they're gonna feel different now, but we can't control the future, right?
Yeah. Good thing is at that point, it gave us the reaction that you wanted. But no, I
Correct.
agree. That's really good feedback. The issue is sometimes, and this isn't a cop out, but yeah, sometimes you have production issues where it's like, you have so much that you can do, right? And so sometimes the decision becomes, okay, let me throw this in there, as opposed to, do I spend time when I have these 200, 300 boxes to go in there? Yes, we could do a better job, is the short answer. The longer answer is, how do we get to that point where we can focus on each individual box? Now, one
Yeah.
thing, and I'll give you guys a little bit of inside
Yeah.
information that we're focusing on. I think those goes back to what you were talking about, how it turned out to be, a certain level of cost. And then on top of that, the shipping and import
Yeah.
is, it comes from our headquarters. We're based out of the UK. I'm here in Vegas, right? I started with the company in April, and some of the things that we're working on is distribution out of here. Because we have the data. We know where people are buying boxes
That's
from,
right.
not only boxes, but our product. So being able to distribute and fulfill here and store our product here will save on having to ship stuff to the UK and then having to ship it back, and you bear the brunt of that
Import.
cost,
Yeah.
which is getting worse and worse, because I got to tell you, like, I deal with importing, you know, and U.S. customs, and it's getting worse. So in fairness, $1,000 mystery box shouldn't cost you $1,500-$1,600 to purchase it. That's
Right.
not what we want, because I'd rather, and this is not the case, I'm just being kind of a jokester, I'd rather get the 1,500 for a $1,500 mystery
That's
box.
yeah.
And,
If
you
you're
know what I
willing to
mean?
pay
So,
$1,500,
right,
I'd rather give you a
right.
$1,500 box.
Yeah. So we're trying to work on that, and be deliberate about where we're, sending stuff from. So
Yeah.
that way, for example, if we do 200 boxes and 150 are being purchased by American, or even not American, but North American um, buyers, that I can ship them here, because it'll be kind of better in terms of shipping and importing,
Yeah.
and a lower cost for you, where that's almost like not even a thought of process. But I can imagine if I was on your end and you're like, I just spent a grand and I got to pay, another $500-$600.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
and you
adds to
guys,
the
and like to your
experience.
point, you have the data, so you know that 75, 85% of your sales are coming from North America. So at least keep somewhere near that inventory there, and then ship what you need, to
Yeah.
UK, to the headquarters, to then distribute those out and save international people from import fees as well. Because I know that I had somebody recently on the International Fight Week box message me that they ended up paying. So this is, I didn't make the conversion to Australian dollars, but they ended up paying close to like $2,700 all in for getting their $1,500 box after taxes and import fees. And so then I was like, so they're feeling the pain too. So I wonder if
Yeah.
there's ways to somewhat mitigate some of that. Now, it's going to be impossible to do that globally, but just for your team to, be aware of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before
Definitely something where, yeah.
and before we get into the community feedback, which I already touched on one, I know we're at the hour. Are you good on time?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll try to
Mhm.
wrap it up in about 15 more minutes. So one more thing that I wanted to just pick your brain on was because you had mentioned you are the person that's going through curating items for it. If you can share light on this, are we right to assume that as you're curating items, you have a internal like price for these items so that as you're stacking them, you're coming close to the retail price of the mystery box and you can't go above it. You might go a few dollars above it, a few dollars below it, but that's kind of what's guiding what you're able to put into these boxes. Is that fair?
Yeah, yeah. The way the math works is very simple, and you just touched on it exactly. It's really we get these items. We would be horrible business people if we purchase the products for what they sell online. So we get the products at a certain level,
Correct.
price point,
Correct.
and then so for me, that price point, and then there's the retail price point.
Correct.
So for me, the value of the box can't equal the cost of the box for us, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
we have to make sure that that margin is a certain margin, and then the retail value is what the customer, the buyer, is going to perceive the items for. So what we try to do is make sure that as I'm including items, I have a spreadsheet, to be honest, and
Yeah.
then I'm like, a lot of it is trial and error. Like, I want to include XYZ. Let me see, let me punch in XYZ. Oh, I got to take X out, and I move in and I try to substitute so that the math makes sense,
Yeah.
for
And
everyone involved.
some boxes have a worse margin because in the macro you hit the margin you're supposed to across the 200 or 300 boxes. Is that how you're able to give somebody a box that has double the perceived value of what they paid and they might hit the, the tickets?
No, not necessarily, because
Yeah.
honestly, for me, the tickets are independent of that. I try to
Okay.
keep that
Separate.
separate. And what we try to do is this: you kind of break down the cost, because not everyone's going to get the tickets. But so you take the cost of the tickets or the perceived value, and you
Mm-hmm.
basically distribute it over all boxes. So
Mm-hmm.
that way, it doesn't become like, oh, one box is a certain perceived value. It's like, okay, the box is made up of the normal items that are going to
Yep.
go into it, and then the prizes are spread out over all of them so that it all evens out,
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
that makes it so that the prizes are independent of what you're
Yeah.
getting. So for me, when I focus on perceived value, it's every other item besides the prizes, because the prizes are icing on the cake. So I can't necessarily use the icing on the cake across all of the
Yeah.
boxes. So I try to make sure that each box has a certain perceived value across the board. The problem with that is that, let's take the example of fight worn.
Yeah.
That's a line item, right? Let's
Yeah.
say that was X. I put X in there. Well, within that category, there's different items and different fighters,
There's
and
tiers to
so
that, right? There are
there's
tiers
tiers
to
to
the
that.
fighter
Yeah.
wars. Okay.
So that's why for me, and that's why you got two gloves, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that the way it works is fight worn for me is one that I'm not hanging my hat that, oh my god, it has to be a certain value. Like that for me is more like a middle tier item. I don't, and I say this this
Okay.
is not how I mean it, but I don't care. I do care, but I mean, it doesn't matter to me which item is included, because that's not where like the main value of the box comes from. Because I'm also throwing in some of them signed items from current
Mm-hmm.
fighters. That's why you got a current fighter that wasn't fight worn. That was a signed collectible, and then you got the fight worn, which was a lower tier, so to speak.
Yeah. Throw
So
away. Yeah.
yeah, so it's a spreadsheet and a lot of trial and error and trying to figure out where I can get the value, and a lot of it is actually personal preference. So I got to tell you that the next one, I'm like, oh man, this is a cool item. And when you if you get one, you'll
Mm-hmm.
understand why, because you'll see some of the stuff I have back here. You're like,
Yeah.
I can see why Victor valued that,
There's an
because
influence.
of what I collect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the problem is, what you collect and what I collect are different. Notice a variety of stuff that I have compared to what you have. So we're
Mm-hmm.
totally different collectors. So for
Yeah.
me, if we were in baseball and I got a bobblehead, that'd be awesome because I love
I
bobbleheads.
would love a
You might not.
bobblehead too.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but,
Yeah.
but my
Yeah.
point is, you might
I
not.
hear you.
Or
Yeah.
or like those Bruce Lee figures over here. I love
Yeah.
figures like the McFarlane figures and stuff like that. If I
Yeah.
got something like that in a baseball mystery box, awesome. You might get it and be like, it's an action figure.
Yeah.
So I can't I some so that's the part of this that I don't really have control over is the
Yeah,
type of
yeah.
fan that is getting it. And so my job is to try to give you different tiers, like I said. Some stuff that's collectibles that you just, can display. Sometimes some stuff that, oh, that's cool to have. Other things that you can, practically use, and hopefully I can cover everyone. But
I like the
obviously.
idea of you guys tapping into other type of collectibles to add in there. I'll add a few other ideas that come from older top cards. They used to also include mouth guards as pieces that they would put in cards. I personally am not a big fan of those, but I know people
I gotta
love
tell
the
you,
idea of
Alex,
them.
I tossed that idea not for the mystery box, but I
Yeah.
tossed that idea and I'm working on something
Yeah.
that I gotta say, their initial reaction was like, "That's disgusting." I'm like, "No, no, think about this. Think about this. Let me give you let me." And I'm just gonna. What's your favorite fighter? We'll use as an example.
Yeah, we'll
Who's
go
your
with
favorite
Jones.
fighter?
John Jones.
Okay, imagine a John Jones mouth guard from one of his fights in acrylic,
Yeah.
right? That'd be
Oh
kind of
yeah,
cool
that
collectible
like
item,
that, I'd absolutely rock it. To have like
right?
an actual like mouthpiece, yeah, I'd probably,
Yeah. So,
wouldn't want to
anyways,
hold it.
yeah, that's an I right. I needed to have something where it's not like disgusting to hold,
Correct,
but I
correct.
love the idea. I've
Yeah,
tossed that idea around, and I'm working on something that hopefully maybe down the road.
I love
Because
that.
here's the thing, going back to what I was saying, I'm always trying to curate items, and I don't want them to be boring, the same thing every time. Same thing with like when I do signings. So when I
Yeah,
do athlete signings, it's usually gloves, jerseys, shorts, photos, and canvas. I'm like, dude, give me another idea. Let me toss something else in there
yeah.
because I don't want to come with the same items every time.
Let me
So
give you
I'm
two more.
always
Let
looking.
me let me give
Yep.
you two more. There was also a something called a fistograph. Have you heard of those?
Uh-uh.
So a fistograph is literally these fighters putting their fist on ink and then placing it down on the card, and that would be their fistograph autograph, right? Um, Playing off of that,
Huh.
that could be
Like
a
that
cool
idea.
idea. You guys are already getting their signatures on the gloves, right? So it's something that they do in addition. Because I've seen the Memento exclusive videos on YouTube where they're like doing signings with Leon Edwards and I think it was Aspinall as well. And I got to see how they lay out all the gloves on the table. So it would be the extra thing that they do where they just put their fist into, some ink and start, fistographing some whatever that item is. It doesn't have to be a card. It could be their picture with a area where they do that. You guys can take that idea and get creative with it. But that was
I like
one.
that idea. I like
Another
that
one that
idea.
recently hit my radar, which I was like, I don't know how that was, if that was an official Bruce Buffer like card that he reads from, just because Bruce Buffer, when you see him in the octagon, he has like a pretty big card. It's not the size of a trading card. It's pretty big,
Right.
but assuming that he doesn't already have like something that he does with those, getting that card of like the main event as one of the items put in there where you can see how his notes are like fighting out of da, 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 John
Right.
Jones, like that would be something cool to toss in there. So that was another idea. If I have other ones, I'll toss them out. The other thing I also wanted to mention that I put in my video that I think people overlook is when you get a canvas patch, sure you can look at it for like, oh, Charles Oliveira versus this fighter on that event, but every other fight happened on that canvas as well. So like I like to think of it from like you almost have a canvas patch of not just Charles, but you have of every fighter that stepped foot on that octagon, that
Yeah.
night. So I like to highlight that to people as well in case they're not happy with which one they hit. Maybe they have at least a little bit more like they're okay with it knowing that Makayev or Sean O'Malley in his early days fought on that one or whatever it may be,
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, yeah. The challenge with the canvas is this: that one, to get their signatures, like even just to do a signing.
yeah,
So let's say we wanted to do one where we got the main card. That'd be a nightmare. It could take over a year to get that
yeah,
signed. So what we do is we try to take. Let's say we have enough for 100 canvases from a fight.
yeah,
Well, if I was going to do let's use Charles Oliveira as an
yeah.
example. If I was going to do a signing with Oliveira, I've only used 20 because I want to leave the rest in case I could do a signing with the other athletes.
Athletes got it.
So that's how I kind of mix it, because getting all of them to kind of like do a signing, I'm telling you, it could take a it could take a
Yeah,
year.
yeah. Oh, and my
And
idea
then it's
actually
like,
wasn't to get all of them. It was just me mentioning to the consumer, the person that received it, in case they're not happy with, like, I hit the
right.
Tony versus Michael Chandler. In case they're not happy with it, I went and saw who else fought on that. I was like, oh, cool. This person fought on there. This person fought on there. So in my mind, I'm like, it's
Right.
not just those two guys. It's a canvas patch that actually had the following fighters on it. So that's just my own knowledge. I just thought
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
call it
yeah.
out. You know?
No, no, and that's a good idea because also like we do sell canvas and photo items that are not signed, and then we try to match it with the fighters. But
Mm,
maybe doing a product where if we're focusing on one, like that Chandler one,
hmm.
we also list out and
The
so and so and
the
so and
the
so. But then
fights.
that could be long as heck. And so I
Well, it
like
could
the
just
idea. We'd have to think
yeah.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't even have to be on the product. It can be on a piece of paper as like an FYI, you know. But
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
again, if nothing else, at least for the viewer watching this, they'll have a different perspective on the product itself. You know.
Well, no, and
Um,
it's like exactly like you said because it could have been like, oh man, I didn't realize Sean O'Malley fought in that one. Oh, that's even cool. Now it makes it better.
yeah, yeah. You're
So
like
yeah, that's a good
ignoring the
idea.
fact that it's a Chandler picture on there. You know that this is really a Sean O'Malley one from his early days. You know, so it's like a
Right,
cool
right.
way to look at it. All right,
Yeah,
just
that's not a
being
bad idea.
mindful of time. So community feedback. This was bringing back COAs to display next to your collectibles. I sent this to you on email
I
as
saw
well.
that one. I saw that one, and I got to tell you. So, as a fan of sports and like tickets, I hate the fact that we've gone to digital because I like to collect. I actually have, and I'll show you guys.
Yeah,
Give me
yeah.
one
Let's
second.
take a look.
This is something my sister-in-law gave me, and it's one of my prized possessions. But it's a frame where I toss all my tickets in here,
That's so
right?
cool.
So for me, that feedback applies to me because I like to have the physical, like, and just so you guys know, so little backstory. I was with the Boston Red Sox when they won the World Series in '04, and I got a ring, right? And my ring has the certificate of authenticity. And for me, I wouldn't want that digital. I'd like it in physical form. That being said, we're such a digital like world now
Yeah,
that like how do I put it? The technology is going across the board in all of sports to um, a digital platform, and the fact that you can scan and do this, and we have more people asking for that. That's why we switched. That's why
yeah.
we decided that this is a better model because we have more people who would want to have the digital aspect than the ones who would like me. That would be me. Wants the physical paper, and so can we kind of meet in the middle? I'm sure because we already send you, if you notice, in some of the
Yeah,
stuff
there's
you
some of
receive,
the certificates.
there's
Yep.
something. And I got to be honest, when I opened the mystery box and I was at UFCX going through this display, I was looking for the certificates, and I
Yeah.
work here, right? But I'm like, wait a second, we could put in there. We're already printing stuff. We could put in there something physical that goes in addition to the digital one. It's just printing something, right?
I
So
think
yes,
so.
right. I think so too. Because like I said, I work here, and the funniest part was I was going through like, wait, when am I get? There's nothing in here. Like this is
Yeah.
just a return thing, and blah blah blah, and explaining how to do the process. But where's the certificate? And I had to remind myself it's digital. You do the scanning,
Yeah.
and it's cool technology. But I think that there is something where we can include it. For those that want to have it
Yeah.
displayed and want to maybe frame it. So I think
That'll
there's
be cool.
something
And
to
shout
that.
out to Fight Cave for that suggestion. Wanted to make sure to plug
Yeah.
in. He's actually uploaded videos in the past and shared feedback on some of the Memento exclusive, products as well. So I wanted to make sure to shout him out on the topic of digital. Actually, before I even go there, are all items not supposed to have a card for you to scan off of? Because in my international fight week box, I think I had two cards to scan items for, and it was maybe like, let's just say the canvas and for another product. But for the gloves, I had to actually put my phone inside the glove because the little seal, the little sticker that's the scan was in there. So I was curious if the intention should not be to make sure you have a card for all of them so that the process of scanning in and registering in the item is easier. And especially easier because you would think like, okay, putting your phone in the glove, that's easy. But then the next step is asking you to actually typing the code and trying to find that, and make like put it at the right angle, the glove, to then type it
Right.
out. That's where it gets a little tricky. What are your, quick thoughts on that?
Yeah. I don't think you're supposed to get kind of an envelope for everyone. It's for things that have to be authenticated. So anything with a signature and things like that. Now, could the gloves be any better? You know what? We'd be open to it. It's just the gloves are a weird kind of the way they're set up, right?
Yeah.
Where you could put that because you want to put it in somewhere where it's not easily removable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
where we put it is kind of like through trial and error, the one place where it's secure. So that makes it difficult. A lot of people don't realize, and I saw the way you were trying to do it. It makes
Yeah.
it difficult. But I've seen other people where they just open the strap. It makes it so much
I
easier.
didn't want
And
to.
so,
I didn't want to open this.
right, that's what I thought. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Alex might not have wanted to, but I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I could
Yeah.
see, but
But
there was
here's
no
here's another way
instructions.
then. Here's another, well, instructions, or here's another easier thing, which if you watch the video you saw, but and this is again more tech than anything, but just from using another product in the past, when I would go to scan something in, it only asked me to log in and do that one step like the first time. And then there was a window that it stayed open for. I think it was like a 15 to 20-minute window where anything else I scanned already went into my account versus having to put in the code for the second item, put in the code for the third item, the fourth item, the fifth item, right? And so I don't
Yeah.
like that's one that's like improves the experience. And I know why the team has it the way they have it now, but it's just something to consider where it's like the chances of somebody scanning a second item after they're scanning a first from a mystery product box is very high, right?
Yeah,
So
no,
just
yeah, I
being
agree.
open to that.
That's very good feedback. Something I'll take back because yeah, that would drive me nuts. I'm like, dude,
Okay.
I just logged in. Like it happens with other stuff. You're like, why are you asking me to log in again? I just logged in. So
Correct. All right, so
yeah.
now let's briefly touch on the UFC's International Fight Week Edition mystery box, which is still available for purchase on UFCcollectibles.com. The mystery box retails at $1,500, was limited to 200 in quantity. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And it also includes authentic items from the Octagon, signature pieces, and other limited edition collectibles. However, this one did guarantee a Conor McGregor item, as UFC 303 was originally built around his return. So, give me your thoughts here. I have a few questions that I wanted to touch on, but give me your thoughts on International Fight Week, and that product, what the feedback has been, what your experience was from that one to 300.
Yeah, so the feedback's been great. I mean, positive for those that got the box. The feedback that wasn't as positive was the price point because it was,
Mm-hmm.
more than our typical one. And that goes back to what I talked about before. The more premium stuff that we include takes the price point a little bit higher. And this one included, obviously each one had a Conor McGregor item. Um, and so that's the challenge that I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's a comfortable level because if all 8 items were top tier, this would be a $5,000 mystery box. So
Sure.
so again, how do we get people a mystery box, include Conor McGregor item, and try to really build off that interest initially when he was fighting, and
Yeah.
also even if he wasn't fighting,
We're
right? For
still,
me,
yeah.
that's what I liked about billing it as an international fight week because there's a lot of stuff going on during
Mm-hmm.
international fight week, but the fact that you could still get because I can do the same thing during any other mystery box, include a Conor McGregor item. It's still going to be popular,
Yeah.
but the challenge is where do we draw the line at these price points?
Yeah.
And if I did, let's say, a $500 item, a $500 mystery box, can I include a Conor McGregor item?
Yeah.
And would it just be that? And
Yeah.
would
What it?
someone,
Yeah.
you
I
know
was
what I
gonna
mean?
ask you that. What
You
is the
know,
answer to that? And
right?
what
And I
does
don't
a
have an
five hundred
answer.
dollar mystery box look like?
Yeah,
Five
so
keychains.
that
Like,
right, no,
like,
so that's the challenge, and that's what I
yeah,
mentioned earlier. That for me, that's the biggest thing is curating the items
yeah,
and being able to offer the fan, the buyer, a value that they feel this is worth it. And I feel because I got to be honest, I'm going to tell you when I do these or we do these, I want to make sure that I can feel confident about them. I don't want to just. It's not a business decision for me, like solely. I want to be
correct.
able to say, great, this is a great box. Here's why. And oh man, as a fan, I would buy this because there's nothing worse than going through those numbers and being like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
want to have that reaction.
yeah,
So to go back to discussing the IFW one, that was the challenge, the price point. And
Yeah.
like you said, what made it easier was for people to see, oh, there is value because I'm getting gloves.
Yeah.
Everyone got gloves. I'm guaranteed a Connor item. I'm gonna get a fight worn item. I'm gonna get
A
another thing that
watch.
people, it seems minor, the watch, but obviously they don't see it until they actually have it. But the UFC 300 kits,
The kids. Yeah.
people love that. Like I was excited that mine had Max Holloway's. I did a
Yeah.
signing with Max Holloway, so I'm impartial because he was a
Yeah.
cool
Yeah.
dude. But I was like, those are cool, But like you
Yeah.
saw in the one we
My
had
Whaley
there,
piece fit me great. So.
right, right. But actually, that was something I wanted to. I saw your video and I was
Yeah.
like, it's not intended for use.
Of
That's an
course.
item.
Of
Oh,
course.
that's cool. So so that's the thing. It's figuring out what we can get in those boxes,
Hmm.
and I could still feel confident that me as a fan, I would still buy those, and that'd be cool because I want the cool factor.
Yeah.
It's not just about the money. It's about, man, that's cool.
To be
And I got to
fair,
tell you that these next ones,
collectors would put those in a frame and happily display it for sure. For sure.
that's what I was thinking. I'm like, Alex, those go in a frame. It's not
Yeah.
for you to wear. So, but no. So the next boxes, that's what I'm working on. It's like, okay, if we do because the idea initially is to do 3 tiers price points,
Okay.
not higher than 1,000, but lower,
Great.
right? So 1,000 and then two other ones, and it's what can I put in there that's cool that people be like, man, that is nice. And yeah, it's a smaller box, I guess less items,
Yeah.
but it's
But
still
it's a
cool.
foot in the door. It's for them to test it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, to answer your question, yeah, that's something that I got to put through, and it's difficult. That's the difficult part.
Yeah. And folks can watch my video to get my full thoughts. But overall, I said that this one was something that I would recommend people make their purchase. I said I didn't feel like my box was necessarily the holy grail, but even then, my perceived value to it from things that I knew I can find a retail price for, other items that I had to kind of guesstimate. And I felt like I was being conservative on how I guessed the price for them. Even then, having paid 1,600 all in with taxes, I was still at about above 2,200 after it was all said and done. So that's like a pretty big gap where if you disagree on some of
Yeah.
my prices, you can start to subtract and you still have to, come down quite a bit. So I was happy with the IFW edition. And so if we continue in this direction, that's amazing, right? Like it's heading in the right
Yeah.
direction. The price point, that was something that I was cognizant as well. Like, yes, I was more happy with this one. It did cost me the same amount because of what the 300 ended up
Oh yeah,
costing
for
me,
you. Okay,
right?
yeah.
Right. What it ended up costing me, I said, but I was like, knowing that the news about distributing from Vegas out now, that gives me a peace of mind as well. So I thought that was great. One thing I did want to confirm, were all boxes supposed to come with trading cards?
No, so I'm glad you brought this up. This is
Yeah.
all inside information I'm giving you.
Thank you.
So here's the thing. So when we were thinking of the fight kits, the special design ones from
Hmm.
300, we knew we had Pereira, we had Gaethje, we had Holloway, and we had Zhang Wei Li.
Yeah.
The issue was, remember what I mentioned earlier, how much you have available
Yeah.
in terms of quantities. So there weren't enough. So I couldn't. So for me, it's like, did I really want to include Zhang Wei Li both shorts and bras,
Yeah.
right? So then I was like, okay, if we do shorts like we did for the guys, that's perfect in and of itself. So then I was like, okay, but we don't have enough to cover the 200 because there was only so many quantities available because
Yeah.
those fly off the shelves and there's certain, that need to stay in retail and stuff like that.
Correct.
So I had a certain number of the bras that were extra, and I didn't have enough for the guys to cover a certain amount of the boxes, but I also didn't have 200 of the tops.
Yeah.
So the way I figured, I'm like, okay, the way I give this box a certain value is if you get a bra, you get the tops.
Okay.
So what I will say is you got a nice one because you got the tops, because all the other ones that had the shorts didn't get the tops.
Okay.
The tops was to give you that extra value, so that it's a combination of the two to make up what you weren't getting in a Max Holloway. Like the
Yeah.
one that I
Yeah.
got here, for example, didn't get tops. I just put in the tops for the ones I got the bra because that's a smaller, lesser item,
Yeah.
even though it's still individually designed. Now, had you gotten Whaley's shorts,
I
it
would have
probably wouldn't
probably.
have included the tops
Okay.
because That
Got
was
it.
how I made that up.
I
So
think,
again, you're starting to see that
yeah,
how the
how you play
mentality
with
kind
it.
of works.
I
Yeah,
think, and I would love community feedback, but I do think the tops in there would be a great item for both parties. One, the consumer, because it's like a mini gamble and like maybe hitting a really great card. But I think it's fair to say that for your team as well, you guys have a killer margin on it because you guys are getting it from, like top. So you guys have the licensing deal with for the card. So I feel like that's a great item to put in there because there's already a markup on what top sells these for what it costs them to make it. So it almost feels like that's a good one to add because there's an experience to the unboxing of those cards as well. And the chance that you may have just put one of those in there that has a one of one that's worth, $12,000. So
right.
so I think it's something to consider adding as a staple in there. It still is a mystery, right, of what you're gonna hit. So like there's a dynamic there that's fun to it.
But I
Other
gotta be
than
honest,
that, yeah,
your reaction, I was like, that's the reaction I was going for
yeah,
someone that got the raw and the tops, where you
okay.
were like all excited about the tops. I'm like, okay, that was the point.
That was the
So
point. Yeah, because somebody messaged me and I was like, did you get Topps cards? And I wasn't sure if they were for sure supposed to be in there. So I said, let me ask when we connect. But now it's good to, have the official answer.
and I actually had another quick question for you
Yeah.
because I had this happen to me. And I work here and I deal with the mystery boxes. But when I was at IFW, I had to text back to the headquarters. I'm like, where's the canvas piece, in acrylic, and where's the desktop belt?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's at the bottom. And I'm like, how am I supposed to know that? Like,
And you
I'm
saw
like,
I
I
almost
didn't
missed
know.
it.
Yeah, I was like, there's no, I didn't know there was a separate compartment like layer
Yeah.
to it.
It was
Now, like I said, the one I
buried
got
at the
here,
bottom. Yeah.
the belt was on top.
Yeah.
But I'm like, so what I started thinking was in the future, if we're gonna do that, you know how when you do your remote to your TV, it has that little like ribbon
Yeah. To
so you can
pull.
pull the batteries out.
Yeah.
Give me a little ribbon to tell me that
That
there's something at the bottom.
totally makes
So,
sense. Yeah, no, I almost missed it. And then I was like, oh, there
yeah.
is something. And even then, it felt like it was just the acrylic on the side. But then I was like, wait, let me pop this last piece of, cardboard off. And that's when my belt was at the bottom. So that was really nice to see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think, that's all I have on my end, Victor. I want to thank you again for coming on. I know we went over on time, so I want to be mindful of that. I really hope to see you again after a few more releases, and maybe we can touch base on, community feedback again, what else has improved, how far along we've come by then. And is there anything else that you want to leave the viewers with before we wrap up? Any other preview to ideas that you guys are working on?
Yeah, so we have like I said, we're in the works. There's a holiday. I kind of give it to your viewers first. There's a holiday mystery box, and it's going to have a few different price points, and I think that one's going to have some cool stuff. So
Yeah.
it's going to have some items that are going to be the first time in the mystery box, and it's definitely one that I'm like, man, I got to get myself a few of these myself
Okay.
because it's going to be cool. So definitely keep track of that. And also, what I would share is for your viewers, if they, we'll figure out me and you how to do this,
Yeah.
but the IFW one is still available. So
Yes.
I'll offer, $100 off
Wow.
to your viewers. Just let's figure out how we want to do that, and you can get me the information, and I'll communicate directly and extend that discount for anyone who might want to buy the IFW one because there's still a few available.
I love that. Awesome. Awesome. All
Yeah.
right, cool. Well, just hang around backstage. Let me close us out here. Guys, if you enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing. Until next time, this has been Doers Taking Breaks. We are out of here, y'all. Peace.